This week, you've heard I inherited about 1,000 or more Masonic books. What's happening with those? Well, I've got the updates coming. But in this episode of the WCY podcast, we're focusing on something very interesting. A book published in 1921, an original work by T. Troward, titled The Hidden Power and Other Papers Upon Mental Science. This week, we're examining Brother Mark St. Cyr's work in part 1 and 2 as he takes this work and brings it into a contemporary view. It makes it accessible for us, and there are some profound truths extolled. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 652. My thanks goes out to our contributors, fellows, producers, and legacy partners of the WCY podcast. Again, we've been making this show since July of 2011, over 10 years, and it's all thanks to you, and the support we get is what makes this continued effort possible. Head on over to WCYpodcast.com if you're curious on how to support this program and our efforts to bring Masonic education to all those interested in the royal art. Other options are, of course, we have the shop where you can get our brand new producer's pin, brand new design. We've got a slick reprint of the pin with an all new bright blue background, and gold is back. It's awesome. If you'd like to do something that is a little outside the box, we've got a handmade bespoke leather keychain. I make them by hand, each and every one. I hand sew them and all of that. I do the square and compass on one side. You can put the G in it or not, or maybe you want a yod or something. And on the other side, we put your lodge name and number. We can do initials, all of that stuff, all orders, all that kind of thing goes right back into the production of this program. And so I just want to thank you guys for any thoughts on the potential of supporting this program. The presentation schedule. Well, we've had a couple adjustments here. October 3rd through 5th, I was going to be down at the Grand Lodge of Illinois, annual communication, very excited. And before it used to say, I'm just hanging out, having a blast. Well, it turns out I'm actually going to be, I was asked to deliver the keynote for the Illinois Lodge of Research on Friday. So I'll be doing a brand new presentation, which is part of the reason this episode is late. I've been putting together this presentation called Making the Right Choices in Leadership. Competency is greater than feelings. This is a particular presentation where I've been doing a lot of fundamental research in people to figure out how this works. And rather than give you a bunch of reasons about how to do something, I'm just going to essentially give a bunch of hard truths. And we're just going to have to get over the fact that it is the way it is, and we need to overcome these things through the quality of our leaders and their ability to get things done. And then after that, on my birthday, on the 21st of November, I'll be doing Quantum Entanglement and Apotheosis out in Indianapolis, Indiana. A couple events happening in 2025 in February, another one in June. Got more details on the one in June than in February in the moment, which is the San Antonio Esoteric Summit, which will be Saturday, June 7th, 2025. There'll be a number of awesome speakers: Jeff Bennett, Ben Williams of the Rocky Mountain Mason, Frank Zepp, Dirk Hughes, you may know, myself, as well as Rodney McGilvery and TJ Brumfield. And we've got links and things on the website, wcypodcast.com/presentation-schedule. And you can click on the announcements, the little flyer there, and you can grab your ticket. They've got a sign-up genius that they're going to be taking names and things from. Looks like they've got a price for the summit itself and also the festive board, which I believe there are. If you have the summit ticket, I think it includes the festive board, but I'll get more details on that as time moves forward. The event itself will be in San Antonio, Texas at the Alzafar Shriners Director Staff Building. So looking forward to that. You can also contact them through the link on the website, wcypodcast.com. This week, I wanted to read a couple parts of a series that was put together by Brother Mark St. Cyr. He started this series called The Hidden Power, Troward, The Hidden Power, and it's separated into parts. I think they're up to part 4 now. In this episode, I want to read you the first 2 parts. So, here we go. Troward, The Hidden Power, Part 1. by Midnight Freemason guest contributor Brother Mark St. Cyr. The following is my attempt to apply contemporary verbiage to one of the most unsung heroes of this modern age, Thomas Troward, 1846 to 1916. If the name sounds vaguely familiar, there's a reason. Freemasons might recall his thoughts as a Masonic scholar along with Albert G. Mackey, William Harvey, H.L. Haywood, W.L. Fawcett from the book The Two Great Pillars of Boaz and Jachin. Whether or not Judge Troward was a Freemason, I'm not sure. For the more I researched, the more I found works of his relating to the topic, but none showing initiation or affiliation. However, his name and work go far beyond the craft, and are foundational for many ideas practiced today such as AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the New Thought movement, accumulated wisdom and philosophy from a variety of origins such as ancient Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Chinese, Taoist, Hindu, and Buddhist cultures, right through to today's positive thinking movement. Bob Proctor of The Secret fame credits Troward's work in much of his own. This is just a sampling. It's a far deeper and far more consuming than one may judge at first glance. But his influence is everywhere. It's just most have no idea. I'd like to change that. So what I'm offering, starting with this sample below, is to take chapter by chapter, point by point, while keeping his original intent and examples intact, not adding or changing things into what I think, but what he said directly as succinctly as possible with more contemporary verbiage and phrasing. I will footnote the book using the APA 7th edition method or similar. The heading, titles are not changed unless noted, and for those who want to see and read the original text, you can find it across the web for free, for it's all in the public domain. Or you can easily download a digital version on services like Kindle for a cost, or others, or simply get a hard copy at any bookseller. Now, when it comes to the subject matter, it's not as if I'm some wide-eyed, holy moly, I found the Holy Grail type. I've been at this and doing this for a very long time. I have my first editions, first printings from the likes of Andrew Carnegie, Empire of Business, 1902, through Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and more. So it's not like I'm not literally invested in such topics, or I don't know what is being professed and its intent, or the profound meaning encapsulated that so many are looking for today but just can't seem to find. Everywhere you turn today, someone is coming up with ancient wisdom in some new and improved version, taking the original expressions and trying to turn them into some soundbite or quote on social media with no understanding of what is truly at the root and why. This project I'm starting here on the Midnight Freemasons is to try and alleviate just that, making it understandable, relatable, and more importantly, applicable to one's daily life. I hope you agree. Now, let's begin. The Hidden Power, Chapter 1, Section 1. To truly understand how much of our daily lives are influenced by symbols, we need to answer the age-old question, what is truth? As we start to recognize this, we begin to approach truth. Realizing truth means being able to interpret symbols, whether they are natural or conventional, and not just dismissing them as meaningless. The main responsibility of those who have attained this knowledge is to help others understand this connection. Everything has an inner and outer aspect. A superficial mind fails to grasp the deeper truth because it only focuses on the outer appearance. As long as this is the case, a person cannot comprehend their connection to the universal, and thus cannot make progress in understanding. Denying the principle of growth, which is fundamental to all aspects of life, whether spiritual, intellectual, or material, leads to stagnation. Growth and expansion from within, in alignment with the natural order, is the law of life. This principle unlocks the mysteries of existence. Without this understanding, we cannot move from the superficial to the deeper aspects of life. Recognizing this inner truth allows us to see that life is richer and more meaningful when we look beyond the surface. In a broad sense, everything is a symbol of deeper truth within it, and nature is a gallery of hidden meanings for those who can interpret them. Our lives are shaped by how we understand these symbols, especially in relation to the divine. A person's beliefs about the divine influence their entire life, not just their formal adherence to a specific creed. Has a person's mind truly reached a point where they know God or understand the knowledge they possess about the divine? Without inner clarity, one's mind remains in chaos with elements of being disordered and conflicting. Progressing further means realizing that there is a governing power within, even if initially obscured. Otherwise, life becomes a constant struggle to reconcile inner chaos. Every step toward understanding, from the lowest levels of ignorance to the highest peaks of intelligence, must reflect the deeper realization of one's connection to the divine. This realization dissolves old limitations and leads to freedom, power, and light. True understanding is not merely theoretical, but involves a deep, conscious experience of life within ourselves. The closer we get to this inner understanding, the clearer our perception of symbols becomes. However, this journey is not easy, as each step involves convincing ourselves that the symbols are not the truth itself, but representations of a deeper reality. The difficulty lies in moving beyond mere symbols to grasp the truth they point to. Many may fear the changes that this deeper understanding brings, preferring the familiar over the unknown, yet the true power of the universe continually pushes forward, encouraging growth and overcoming limitations. Realizing the hidden power within leads to ultimate truth, beyond any superficial understanding. True inner truth is not an excuse for inaction or fear. Those lacking the energy to seek deeper meaning remain in the superficial aspects of life. True realization involves pushing forward with confidence, trusting that the inner power of the universe will guide us to greater understanding and fulfillment. Mark St. Cyr, a Freemason. Alright, first piece, sick. Really loved this. And I think this is the way to approach this philosophy, because there are a number of ways that you can, in less thoughtful ways, express what is expressed here and run the danger of criticizing somebody's lifestyle or perhaps their inability to have success in their lives when seen from perhaps your point of view looking at somebody else. In other words, sort of in a weird way, judging. But as I read this, one of the things that I take away from it is this idea that if we're unwilling to look inwards and sort of be able to criticize ourselves, to look inwards and say, what are the things that we believe that are probably wrong? And sometimes it's the nature of the mind to avoid this type of internal questioning because A, there is a clear emotional investment in something. If we all of a sudden come to a conclusion that something we've believed for a number of years is false and we have to change that, now we have to also apply that to everybody who's ever influenced us in our lives who also believed that thing that we used to believe. So now we have to deal with that emotional baggage, as well as a number of other baggages in that same sort of scope. The other is that we avoid it because of a convenience of being able to say, that's just my take on it, I'm not smart, I'm not going to dive too deep into it, which sort of seems like a cop-out, but it's what we do. And there is a freedom to some of that. But the even greater freedom is to say, I don't know, and to look for the answer, and to surround yourself with people who will assist you in opening your mind and your eyes to all of these truths as we might understand them to be. And when we do that, something crazy happens. You change who you are, fundamentally, intrinsically, and now all of a sudden, the mundane, the mediocrity of our lives no longer sustains us. We long for, as a bit of Masonic ritual, greater achievements, greater thoughts. Before we get into part 2, the central principle of life, well, it's been about 1.5 years, probably almost 2 years since it was first mentioned to me that a particular large Masonic temple was closing its physical doors because it was merging with another lodge. This left them with an interesting predicament in that they had probably one of the largest Masonic libraries in the state, if not maybe surrounding states. This was a sort of large mansion room, one of these things with 20-foot tall ceilings and 6-7 foot tall bookshelves lining the walls of a giant room. And they just had to pack up everything and put it in storage. And I was asked to take possession of these particular library books and kind of go through them and put them into the hands of organizations that would need them, want them, take care of them, that kind of thing. And so it's been a huge task, and I've been going through them. As I go through these books, really what I'm interested in is just kind of sharing my journey here with you is early First Grand Lodge minutes, which I think are essentially anything before 1840. And then we're looking at any number of exciting Masonic or philosophical books that would speak to today's Masons. So we've been pulling aside all of those books and then separating out Grand Lodge proceedings, Grand Royal Arch proceedings. We're talking about proceedings from, not just Illinois here. We're talking about Louisiana, New Zealand, just anywhere you can think of. So I've been kind of separating all of these out. And all of the proceedings and all of those history texts are going to be donated to the Masonic Library in Normal, Illinois. I dropped off about 8 boxes, maybe 6, 7, 8 boxes about a week and a half ago. And it is a 2.5, 3 hour drive down there. So the next time I'm going to be able to drop off a bunch of books, well, let's just say I've got probably 15 or 16, small size boxes. Think about those like boxes you buy reams of paper in. Maybe like if I were to convert it, I'd say maybe 20 of those filled with, different books and things. But we are going to be cataloging and making sure we've got everything when it comes to the philosophical books and things that are, Masonic, I would say. And we're going to try to make them available to everybody in the coming years as we clean them up, categorize them, organize them, and get them into a proper library space. So just a little update on this library sort of rejuvenation, consolidation project. Here we go. Troward, The Hidden Power Part 2. The Central Principle of Life. What is the central principle at the root of all things? It is life, but not just the life we see in different forms, it's something deeper and more unified. This unity of the spirit is pure and undivided because it hasn't yet diversified. This might seem abstract, but it's the foundation of all scientific understanding of spirit. Without it, we can't explain the countless forms that spirit takes. Life, in this sense, is the sum of all its manifestations. It isn't any one thing specifically, but it holds the potential for everything. This is a highly abstract concept, but it's about the core from which growth happens, expanding in every direction. This core is the unknowable, not because it can't be thought of, but because it can't be fully analyzed. It's something we perceive rather than understand through relationships and comparisons. We've moved beyond questions of relationships and are faced with the absolute. At its innermost, this is absolute spirit. It's life that hasn't yet differentiated into any specific form. It's the universal life at the heart of all appearances. Understanding this is key to unlocking the true power and accessing the core of the living spirit. Some might argue it's contradictory to call this the unknowable and then talk about understanding it. Yet even St. Paul wrote about exploring the depths and heights of the inner side of things to attain the knowledge of love that surpasses understanding. If he could embrace such seemingly illogical phrasing, we can also speak of knowing the unknowable. This knowledge is the foundation of all other knowledge. This undifferentiated, universal life is the ultimate fact that all analysis must lead to. Regardless of the level of analysis, it must always come down to pure essence, pure energy, pure being, something that knows and recognizes itself but cannot be broken down into parts because it is fundamentally whole, pure unity. Analysis without synthesis is destructive. It's like a child pulling a flower to pieces and discarding the fragments instead of understanding the flower's construction and appreciating the vast synthesis of nature's power that the flower represents. The value of analysis is to lead us back to the original point of what we study and teach us, the laws that guide its formation. Understanding the construction's laws, we can reverse our analysis to gain the power to build, always reaching beyond the limits of those who see the quote-unquote unknowable as synonymous with nothingness. This idea of the unknowable is the root of all materialism, yet no scientist, regardless of their materialistic tendencies, treats the unassailable residue in their experiments as nothing. Instead, they use this final, unanalyzable fact as the basis for their synthesis. They find that in the end, it is some form of energy, whether as heat or motion. They don't abandon their scientific pursuits because they can't analyze it further. Instead, they embrace it, understanding that energy's conservation, indestructibility, and impossibility of adding or subtracting from the world's total energy are the unchanging facts on which physical science is built. They base all their knowledge on their understanding of the unknowable, and rightly so, for even if they could analyze this energy further, they would encounter the same problems of the unknowable. Our progress involves continuously pushing the boundaries of our unanalyzable, always a step further back. But the idea that there could be no ultimate, unassailable residue is inconceivable. By realizing the undifferentiated unity of the living spirit as the center fact of any system, whether it be the entire universe or a single organism, we follow a strictly scientific method. Our analysis leads us to the final fact, and then we accept it as the basis for synthesis. The science of spirit is just as scientific as the science of matter. Both start from the same initial fact, the fact of living energy which defies definition or explanation. However, the science of spirit considers this energy under the aspect of responsive intelligence, which is outside the scope of physical science. The science of spirit and matter are not opposed. They complement each other. Neither is fully comprehensible without some knowledge of the other, and they merge into one another in a borderland where no arbitrary line can be drawn. True scientific study reveals the dual aspect of things, the inner and the outer. Only a truncated and incomplete science refuses to acknowledge this. Studying the material world is not materialism if it progresses to its legitimate end. Materialism is the limited view that defines the existence of anything beyond mechanical effects and causes. A system that recognizes no higher power than physical force will ultimately resort to physical force or fraud as its highest appeal. I speak of the system's tendency, not the morality of individuals, who often surpass the systems they profess. History shows us the dangers of materialistic thought, whether in the Italy of the Borgias, the France of the First Revolution, or the Commune of the Franco-Prussian War. To avoid these destructive tendencies, we must embrace the study of the inner and spiritual aspects of life, which leads to the truth and love instead of deceit and violence. Some may wonder why the New Jerusalem is described in the book of Revelation as a cube, with the quote-unquote length and breadth and the height as equal. This is because the cube represents perfect stability, with all sides balanced. It signifies the manifestation of the central life-giving energy, which is not any one plane, but generates all planes. It is the above and below, and all four sides. At the same time, it is the city, a place of habitation, because the within is living spirit, which resides there. Just as one plane of the cube implies all other planes, any manifestation implies others, and the within that generates them. To progress in the spiritual side of science, and every science has its spiritual aspect, we must focus on this innermost within that generates the cube. Our common language reflects this intuitive understanding. We speak of the spirit within, the spirit of a thing, the spirit of the times, and so on. Recognizing this animating spirit, we should understand it from within, rather than from without, to grasp its true nature. Thus, every symbol of a spiritual fact has its foundation in living reality, the same principle that flashes upon us intermittently and vaguely. We may realize that this universal and unlimited power of the Spirit will manifest individually when we are attuned to the whole. Regardless of how far we go in our studies of spiritual science, we will find only particular expressions of this one universal life. The unity of the Spirit is key. By understanding and embracing this unity, we unlock the deeper truths that lie at the heart of all existence, guiding us toward a more profound and comprehensive understanding of life and the universe. Adapted from the original work, Troward, T. 1921, The Hidden Power and the Other Papers Upon Mental Science. Robert M. McBride and Company. All material cited is free use within the public domain. Again, this is by Mark St. Cyr, and this is only part 2. There are parts 3 and 4, and I know we'll expect more as he moves his way through the text. But again, a wonderful look at this, bringing it into contemporary language for all of us to understand. And if you had a little bit of a hard time still trying to understand this, I think some of the main takeaways here are that the human spirit is always looking to continue to understand something, and to say, well, something is ineffable or unknowable is kind of incomprehensible in and of itself. So there's this kind of circular logic there, and we were talking about how science continually pushes itself and life pushes itself for further understanding. Even when we run into a roadblock, the spirit of the human, the spirit of life continues to help us push forward to unlock all of those things as we move forward in time. Or maybe it's not time, maybe it's a status of consciousness or something rather. But I'm sure we'll learn more as we move forward. I want to thank everybody for joining us this week. Once more, I want to thank our producers, fellows, contributors, and legacy partners. If you want to learn more about how you can help support this program, head on over to our website, wcypodcast.com. Click on Support the Show. Additionally, we've got a shop where you can pick up our producers' pins, order leather keychains that are all made by me. I do a lot of leather work, so all of that is something I use to help offset the cost of the show as well, and your patronage is most appreciated. I'll see many of you, hopefully, at the Grand Lodge Annual Communications for the state of Illinois. And until then, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson. Take care.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry, with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.
WCY Media.
Why, that BBS rock the